The morning I learned I could shut down water to $47 million home started like any other Thursday. Coffee brewing. Montana sunrise painting the lake gold. The sound of geese honking as they landed on water that technically belonged to me, though I didn't know it yet. I'm Rex Thornton. 52 years old, retired master electrician, recently widowed. My wife Sarah died 8 months ago from pancreatic cancer. The diagnosis came fast. 3 weeks from persistent stomachache to stage 4. 4 months from stage 4 to hospice. 2 weeks from hospice to gone. After the funeral, our house in Denver felt like a mausoleum. Every room held memories I couldn't face. Her coffee mug still in the cabinet. Her sweater hanging on the bedroom door. The half-finished crossword puzzle on the nightstand with her handwriting in blue pen. I couldn't breathe there anymore. My Uncle Bill had died 6 months before Sarah, leaving me his cabin in Pine Lake, Montana. I'd visited once as a kid, remembered massive pine trees, clear water, absolute silence. When the estate attorney called saying the property was mine, I saw it as a sign. Or maybe just an escape route from grief that was drowning me. I sold the Denver house, packed what fit in my truck, and drove 12 hours north to a town I barely remembered and a cabin I'd seen once 30 years ago. Pine Lake wasn't what I expected. The town itself was typical rural Montana. Population 300-400, 1 grocery store, 2 gas stations, a diner called Mabel's, where everyone knew everyone's business. But Pine Lake Estates, where Uncle Bill's cabin sat, was something else entirely. The Estates was a gated community of custom luxury homes built around a pristine mountain lake. These weren't cabins. They were architectural statements. Glass walls, infinity pools, driveways that could fit 10 cars. Every property probably started at $3 million, many pushing 5 or 6. And then there was Uncle Bill's place at the end of Lakeshore Drive, a 1,200-square-foot A-frame built in 1978. Faded green paint, saggy front porch, dock made of weathered wood that probably should have been condemned years ago. I loved it immediately. The lawyer handling the estate met me at the property. Martin Fisher, 60-something, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, spoke with the careful precision of someone who'd spent decades translating legal language for regular people. "Your uncle was quite a character," Martin said as we walked through the dusty interior. "Refused to sell even when developers offered him ridiculous money. Said this was his home and they could pry it from his cold, dead hands. Sounds like Uncle Bill." Martin handed me a thick folder. "This is important. Your uncle owned this property since 1962. Bought it when Pine Lake was just fishing cabins and local families. All this luxury development happened around him in the last 20 years. Why didn't he sell? He could have made millions, on principle mostly. But also," Martin pulled out a document yellow with age. "This. Your uncle's original property deed includes something most of these newer homes don't have. Water rights." I stared at the paper covered in legal language I couldn't parse. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means your uncle owned not just the land his cabin sits on, but legal rights to extract, use, and control access to the lake water itself. It's an old provision from when this area was first developed. Most properties here have implied water access through the HOA's collective easement. But you? You own actual legal water rights? So I can fish without anyone bothering me?" Martin smiled. "That and technically much more. But honestly, it probably won't matter. Just don't let anyone tell you that you can't use the lake. You have more legal right to be here than anyone else." I should have paid more attention to that conversation, but I was exhausted, grieving, just wanting a place to hide from the world. The paperwork went into a box. The warning went over my head. I just wanted to sit on that rickety dock and watch the sun set over water so clear you could see 20 feet down. That lasted exactly 11 days. The first citation arrived on a Tuesday. A bright yellow envelope taped to my front door with HOA violation notice, printed in red block letters across the top. Inside was a pre-printed form listing my supposed infractions. Violation. 1. Exterior paint color non-compliant with community aesthetic standards. Required remediation. Full exterior repaint in approved color palette. Attached. Violation. 2. Dock structure does not meet current safety and aesthetic guidelines. Required remediation. Complete dock replacement or removal. Violation. Vehicle parking visible from street. My truck was in the driveway. Required remediation. Park in garage or approved storage area. Fine, $500 per violation if not corrected within 30 days. Additional $50 per day after deadline. The letter was signed by Delilah Whitmore, HOA President, Pine Lake Estates Homeowners Association. I read it 3 times trying to understand if this was a joke. My cabin looked exactly the same as when Uncle Bill owned it. He'd lived here for 6 decades without anyone demanding he repaint anything. And the dock? It was old, sure, but it was solid enough. I'd walked on it every morning for 11 days without it collapsing. I called the number listed on the citation. A woman answered on the 3rd ring with a voice that managed to sound both professionally pleasant and deeply condescending. Pine Lake Estates HOA, this is Delilah. Hi, this is Rex Thornton. I just received a violation notice and I think there's been some mistake. Mr. Thornton, she cut me off smoothly. Welcome to Pine Lake Estates. I'm afraid there's no mistake. Your property is currently in violation of 3 separate community standards as outlined in our covenant. But my uncle lived here for 60 years without— Your uncle, Delilah interrupted again, her tone sharpening, was grandfathered under previous agreements. When property transfers ownership, it becomes subject to current standards. You received the full covenant documentation when you purchased the property. I inherited it, I didn't purchase. The legal mechanism of transfer is irrelevant. You now own property within Pine Lake Estates and are therefore bound by our community standards. The violations listed are legitimate and must be addressed within the 30-day window. If you have questions about approved paint colors or dock specifications, that information is available on our website. Ma'am, I just buried my wife 8 months ago. I came here to grieve in peace. I don't have money to repaint an entire house or rebuild a dock that works perfectly fine. There was a pause. When Delilah spoke again, her voice had gone from condescending to ice cold. I'm very sorry for your loss, Mr. Thornton. However, personal circumstances don't exempt property owners from community obligations. If you're unable to maintain standards, perhaps Pine Lake Estates isn't the right fit. Several residents have expressed interest in purchasing your property. I'd be happy to connect you with a real estate agent. And there it was. The real agenda hiding behind fake concern about paint colors and dock aesthetics. I'm not selling, I said firmly. That's certainly your choice. But the violations stand. You have 30 days. Good day, Mr. Thornton. She hung up. I sat on my porch staring at the citation, anger slowly replacing confusion. This wasn't about paint colors. This was about forcing out the one property that didn't fit the luxury aesthetic they'd cultivated. Uncle Bill had resisted. Now they saw his death as an opportunity to get rid of the eyesore cabin and either flip it or tear it down for a McMansion. I wasn't Uncle Bill. I didn't have his history with this place, his decades of roots, but I also wasn't going to be bullied out of the one place that gave me any peace since Sarah died. The problem was I had no idea how to fight back. That changed 3 days later when I met Jackson Cole at Mabel's Diner. Jackson was the kind of guy you noticed immediately. Mid-40s, built like he still hit the gym religiously, skin weathered from outdoor work, wearing Carhartt coveralls and boots caked with dried mud. He slid into the booth across from me without asking, which would normally annoy me, except his opening line was, "You're the guy who inherited Bill Thornton's place." I am. Do I know you? Jackson Cole. I did maintenance work for your uncle for about 15 years. Fixed his roof after that ice storm in 2019. Rebuilt his deck in 2020. Good man. Heard through the grapevine that Delilah's already sent you violation notices. How did you— Small town. Also, it's exactly what she did to the Hendersons, the Chens, and old Mrs. Patterson before they finally sold and moved. Delilah doesn't like anything that damages her perfect millionaire paradise aesthetic. He took a long drink of coffee. Your uncle drove her crazy. She tried getting him to sell for 20 years. He told her where she could stick her offers. Why are you telling me this? Jackson leaned forward. Because Bill was a friend, and because what Delilah's doing is legal but dirty as hell. She uses HOA bylaws to harass people she wants gone until they give up and sell. Then her real estate development company flips the properties for massive profits. It's a racket, but it works because most people can't afford to fight back. I can't afford to fight back either. I'm living on my retirement savings and Social Security. Maybe you can. Bill mentioned something to me once, years back. Said he had insurance against the HOA trying to push him out. Something about water rights. You know anything about that? I remembered Martin's explanation, vague and forgettable at the time. The lawyer said my property deed includes water rights to the lake, but I don't really understand what that means. Jackson's eyes lit up. Oh boy. Rex, my friend, you might have just inherited a nuclear option. Let me make a call. He pulled out his phone and walked outside. Through the window, I watched him pace and talk animatedly for 10 minutes. When he came back, he was grinning. I just talked to a buddy of mine who's a water rights attorney up in Kalispell. Here's the deal. Montana has some of the most complicated water rights laws in the country. Most of these new developments around the lake have what's called riparian rights. Basically, they can use the water because their property touches it, but those rights are shared and regulated by the HOA collective. Okay, but your property has something older and way more powerful. Your uncle's original deed grants him, now you, actual appropriative water rights. That means you have legal claim to a specific volume of water that supersedes anyone else's claim, including the HOAs. I tried to process this. So what does that mean practically? It means that if you wanted to, you could legally restrict or even cut off water access to every other property in Pine Lake Estates. You own the rights. They're just borrowing them. The implication hit me like cold water. I could shut down their water? Not their drinking water. That comes from the municipal system. But lake water. Every dock, boat launch, irrigation system pulling from the lake, every fancy fountain and water feature. Yeah, you could kill all of that with one filing at the County Water Commission. I sat back, mind racing. That seems extreme. It is extreme, which is why you probably shouldn't do it unless they really push you. But here's the thing, Delilah doesn't know you have this. If she did, she never would have sent those citations. She thinks you're just some broke retiree she can bully into selling. What should I do? Jackson grinned. For now, nothing. Let her think she's winning. But if she escalates, and she will, you hit her with the water rights reality. Trust me, once she understands what you actually control, the whole dynamic changes. I thanked Jackson, paid for his coffee, and drove home thinking maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as helpless as I'd felt. The next escalation came exactly 1 week later. I was on my dock fishing when a man in an expensive suit appeared on the shore. Mr. Thornton, I'm Robert Sinclair, attorney for the Pine Lake Estates Homeowners Association. Do you have a moment? I reeled in my line and walked up to meet him. Robert handed me a business card and another envelope. The association has become aware that you're using the lake dock, despite it being in violation of community safety standards. Effective immediately, you're required to cease all lake access until the structure is brought into compliance. You're telling me I can't use my own dock. I'm informing you that continued use of non-compliant infrastructure poses liability risks. If you or anyone else is injured due to the structure's poor condition, the association could face legal action. This is my property. The dock is on my property. You can't tell me I'm not allowed to use it. Robert smiled the way lawyers do when they think they've checkmated you. Actually, the dock itself may be on your property, but it extends into lake waters that are under HOA management. You're welcome to apply for a permit to rebuild to current specifications, but until then, the dock is closed. He turned to leave, but stopped. Also, Mrs. Whitmore asked me to inform you that your 30-day window for paint violations is down to 16 days. She's trying to help you avoid additional fines. After he left, I called Jackson. 20 minutes later, he was on my porch looking at the attorney's letter. They're really pushing. Delilah must want your property bad. What do I do? Jackson pulled out his phone. Time to talk to my water rights attorney friend. His name's Tom Martinez. He's expensive but good, and if what I think is true about your rights, he might take the case for a percentage of the settlement. Settlement? Oh yeah. If they're trying to restrict your water access and you actually own superior rights, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen, and not a small one. Tom Martinez agreed to drive down from Kalispell the next day. He was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, dressed business casual, carrying a laptop bag that probably cost more than my truck. We sat at my kitchen table while Tom reviewed my deed, Uncle Bill's original property documents, and county water rights records he'd pulled up. After an hour of silence broken only by keyboard clicking and page turning, Tom looked up with an expression somewhere between amazed and delighted. Mr. Thornton, you're sitting on a gold mine, and I don't mean the property value. Just call me Rex. What'd you find? Your uncle's 1962 property purchase included something extraordinarily rare. Senior appropriative water rights to Pine Lake. Do you know what that means? Jackson tried to explain, but I'm still fuzzy. Tom pulled out a legal pad and started drawing. Montana water law operates on first in time, first in right. Whoever establishes water rights first gets priority. Your uncle filed appropriative rights in 1962 for irrigation, domestic use, and recreational purposes. Every other property around this lake was developed after 1982, which means their water access is junior to yours. So I have priority if there's not enough water. More than that, you have exclusive control. Under Montana Code Annotated 85-2101, holders of senior appropriative rights can demand junior rights holders cease diversions if it interferes with senior use. In plain English, if you claim that any of these properties using lake water interferes with your rights, they have to stop. I tried to wrap my head around this. All of them? Potentially. The HOA has a collective easement allowing members to access the lake, but that easement is subordinate to your appropriative rights. If you file a formal claim with the Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation, stating that the current level of lake usage interferes with your senior rights, the department is legally obligated to restrict junior users. How long would that take? With proper documentation? Emergency restrictions could be in place within 72 hours. Full legal process might take weeks, but the immediate impact would be dramatic. Jackson, who'd been listening quietly, whistled. So Rex could literally shut down every dock, boat launch, and irrigation system in Pine Lake Estates in 3 days? Legally? Yes, practically. It would cause chaos. Property values would crater. Legal battles would follow. It would be extreme. Good, I said. Both men looked at me surprised. Because what they're doing to me is extreme. They're trying to force me out of the one place I have left. If they want a war, I'll give them a war. Tom held up a hand. Before we go nuclear, let me try something less destructive. Let me send a letter to the HOA attorney explaining your water rights situation. Give them a chance to back down before we file anything official. I agreed, though part of me wanted to just press the button and watch their perfect little empire crumble. Tom's letter went out via certified mail 2 days later. The response came faster than expected. Delilah Whitmore called my cell phone at 7:15 a.m. on a Saturday. Her voice had lost all pretense of professional courtesy. Mr. Thornton, I just received an absolutely ridiculous letter from some attorney claiming you have the right to shut down lake access. I don't know what kind of scam you're trying to pull, but it's not a scam. It's Montana water law. My property has senior appropriative rights that supersede your HOA's easement. That's absurd. This association has managed lake access for 25 years. You can't just show up and, actually I can. Check with your attorney. Or better yet, check with the Montana Department of Natural Resources. My uncle established water rights in 1962. Your development started in 1982. First in time, first in right. Silence. Then, what do you want? I want you to leave me alone. Drop the citations. Stop threatening to restrict my dock access. Let me live here in peace, and if we don't, then I file a formal claim with DNRC claiming your members' water usage interferes with my senior rights. Within 72 hours, every dock, boat launch, and irrigation system in Pine Lake Estates gets shut down while the investigation proceeds. That investigation could take months, maybe years. More silence. When Delilah spoke again, her voice was shaking with barely controlled rage. You wouldn't dare. Do you have any idea how many powerful people live in this community? Lawyers, judges, business owners. They will destroy you. Maybe. But they'll do it without their lake access. Your move, Mrs. Whitmore. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I'd never been a confrontational person. Sarah used to joke that I'd apologize to a chair if I bumped into it. But something about losing her, about being pushed around when I was already broken, had ignited something that wouldn't stay quiet anymore. For 3 days, nothing happened. Then the escalation came from an unexpected direction. I was leaving Mabel's diner after lunch when 3 men surrounded me in the parking lot. They weren't threatening physically, but the energy was intimidating. The one in the middle, tall with silver hair and a golf tan, spoke first. Rex Thornton? I'm William Grayson. I own the property at 2847 Lakeshore Drive. My neighbors and I would like to have a word. About this insane threat to shut down lake access. Do you understand what that would do to property values? My home is worth $4.2 million. If lake access disappears, I lose at least $1 million in equity. Then maybe you should talk to Delilah about why she's harassing me instead of threatening me for defending myself. The man on the right, shorter and stockier, stepped closer. We're not threatening you. We're explaining reality. You're one man with a shack. We're a community of successful people with resources. If you go through with this, we will bury you in legal fees until you have nothing left. I've already been buried in something worse than legal fees, I said quietly. I watched my wife die slowly over 4 months. Your property values don't scare me. The third man, who hadn't spoken yet, finally added, We're prepared to make a generous offer for your property, way above market value, enough that you could buy something nice somewhere else and have money left over. I'm not selling. Be smart about this, William said. You're picking a fight you can't win. Maybe. But you're trying to force me out of my home. So I guess we'll see who's right. I walked to my truck and drove home, adrenaline making my hands shake on the wheel. That night, someone threw eggs at my cabin's front windows. The next morning, I found my mailbox smashed. The morning after that, both my truck's tires were slashed. Jackson came over after I called about the tires. They're trying to intimidate you into leaving. It's working. I'm scared. Good. Fear means you're taking this seriously. But here's the thing, they're scared too. They wouldn't be resorting to vandalism if they thought they could beat you legally. What should I do? File the claim. Make it real. Once DNRC starts the investigation, everything changes. They'll have to negotiate seriously instead of trying to bully you. Tom agreed. That afternoon, we filed a formal appropriative water rights claim with the Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation. The claim stated that my senior water rights were being impaired by junior users and requested immediate investigation and remediation. Tom filed it as an emergency, claim citing property damage and personal harassment. Under Montana law, DNRC had to respond within 72 hours. They responded in 48. A field investigator showed up Thursday morning. Carla Johnson was in her mid-50s, wearing khaki field clothes and carrying a tablet loaded with water rights data. She spent 3 hours walking my property, examining my dock, photographing lake access points, and reviewing documentation. When she finished, she sat on my porch and delivered the news. Mr. Thornton, your claim is legally sound. Your appropriative rights predate every other property's rights by at least 20 years. Under Montana Code 85-2101, you have priority. What does that mean practically? It means I'm required to issue a preliminary restriction order against junior users until a full hearing can be scheduled. That hearing will probably happen in about 6 weeks. But effective immediately, all junior water rights holders in Pine Lake Estates are restricted from new diversions and required to reduce current diversions by 50%. 50%? It's standard for preliminary orders. Ensure senior rights aren't impaired while we investigate. The HOA will receive official notice this afternoon. Restrictions take effect at midnight tonight. After Carla left, I sat on my dock trying to process what was about to happen. By midnight, every property in Pine Lake Estates except mine would have their lake access cut in half. The chaos started around 2 p.m. when the HOA received official notice. My phone began ringing nonstop. I didn't answer. By evening, there were 17 voicemails ranging from pleading to furious. Jackson came over at 10 p.m. with beer and his tactical advice. You need to lay low for a few days. People are going to be pissed. Let them cool off. I can't hide forever. No, but you can wait until they realize you hold all the cards. Give it 72 hours. Then Tom can start negotiating from a position of strength. At 12:01 a.m., DNRC's restrictions officially took effect. The impact was immediate. By morning, the community Facebook page was exploding. Marina staff had posted signs that boat launches were closed pending resolution of water rights investigation. Landscape companies servicing the estates couldn't run irrigation systems. Someone's private beach club had to drain their pool. The property values discussion started within hours. Real estate agents were already revising listing prices downward. A house that had been under contract for $3.8 million had the deal fall apart when buyers learned about the water restrictions. The HOA called an emergency meeting for Monday night. I wasn't invited, but Jackson went and reported back. It was a bloodbath. Half the owners want to sue you into oblivion. The other half want to negotiate. Delilah tried to maintain control, but people are furious with her for creating this situation. What happens now? Tom's going to reach out to their attorney tomorrow with settlement terms. You're in the driver's seat, Rex. Use it wisely. The negotiation took 2 weeks. During that time, Pine Lake Estates existed in a weird limbo. Half the docks were unused. Boats sat dry. The luxury lifestyle these properties had sold on was temporarily gone. Tom's opening settlement demand was simple. All citations against my property immediately. Withdrawn permanent exemption from all HOA. Architectural standards written agreement that my water, usage and dock access would never be. Restricted $50,000 payment for property damage and harassment formal apology from the HOA. Board the HOA countered with dropping citations and exempting me from architectural standards but refusing the payment and apology. Tom told them to enjoy their water restrictions. 3 days later, they came back with a new offer. Everything we wanted plus $75,000 if I would sign a permanent easement allowing HOA members continued lake access. I thought about it for 2 days. Part of me wanted to refuse just to make them suffer, but Jackson gave me advice that stuck. Bill would want you to win, not to be cruel. Take the deal. Secure your peace. Let them learn their lesson without destroying people who didn't personally attack you. He was right. I agreed to the settlement with one addition. Delilah Whitmore had to resign as HOA president. They agreed to everything. The final settlement was signed in Tom's office 3 weeks after the initial water restrictions took effect. The HOA attorney looked exhausted. Delilah wasn't there. She'd resigned the day before, citing family reasons. I received $75,000, permanent exemption from architectural standards, guaranteed lake access, and the satisfaction of watching the people who tried to bully me realize they'd picked the wrong fight. The water restrictions were lifted that afternoon. But the story wasn't quite over. 2 months later, Jackson came by with interesting news. Delilah's real estate company, which had been quietly trying to acquire properties in Pine Lake Estates for years, was under investigation by the Montana Real Estate Board. Turns out using your HOA president position to harass owners into selling below market value, then flipping those properties through your own company, violated about 17 different ethics and legal regulations. Delilah lost her real estate license. Her company folded. Several of her previous deals were being investigated for fraud. As for me, I used $25,000 of the settlement to properly repair my dock, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I used another $20,000 to paint the cabin, this time in colors I actually liked. The remaining $30,000 went into a fund in Sarah's name that provides financial assistance to widows and widowers dealing with unexpected expenses while grieving. Pine Lake Estates is quieter now. People nod when I drive past. Some even wave. I'm not friends with my neighbors, but I'm not their enemy either. I'm just the guy at the end of Lakeshore Drive who taught everyone an expensive lesson about not assuming the quiet, grieving person is powerless. I still fish from my dock every morning. The water is still clear enough to see 20 feet down. And sometimes when the sunrise hits just right, I swear I can feel Sarah out there with me, proud that I finally learned to stand up for myself. Uncle Bill's insurance policy turned out to be the key to everything. Those old water rights, forgotten and ignored for decades, became the weapon that brought down an empire built on intimidation and greed. And the best part? I didn't have to use them forever, just long enough to prove I could. These days, when I see new people moving into Pine Lake Estates, I sometimes wonder if they know the story. If they understand that the modest green cabin at the end of the road once held the power to destroy everything they'd bought into? Probably not. But that's okay, I know. And that's enough.